Sports Professor Rick Horrow, Facebook Live, an international story that has been told a bit, but the timing couldn't be better. It's the first home playoff game of the first round of the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Houston Rockets 2 or 3 hours from now as they begin their march to the NBA Finals. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but they're marching, so we'll see. And it's also the 25th anniversary of the maybe first day of the planning of the MAPS plan. It's been 20 years, the 20-year, like that? Is that kind of cool? 20-year
visuals.
Daily Oklahoma. Yeah, visuals. As you know from my Facebook Lives, I'm not too smart, so I rely on visuals every once in a while. And we only have the best. We are on the 49th floor of the Devon Energy Building, which is the largest building in Oklahoma.
Correct.
Probably one of the largest buildings in the Midwest.
It is.
It is the largest building in the Midwest.
Fifth largest west of the Mississippi, maybe?
Fifth largest west of the Mississippi. My problem is, from an engineering perspective, we are going to take you on a tour of Oklahoma City post-MAPS. We told the clouds to stay away. The clouds are on floor 48, and we're on floor 49. But as I've said, if you thought in 1993, when the first referendum happened with this MAPS plan in Oklahoma City, that you'd be sitting in a building telling a story and you can't see the buildings because the clouds are below you, so you've got to be crazy. But hopefully it will raise up before we actually take the tour. And there's only one person in the sound of our voice that can make things raise up when they hear them, and that is the current mayor of Oklahoma City, Mick Cornett.
You forgot all-powerful.
All-powerful, and on a good day, he's all-powerful, and even better on a regular basis. Mick has been mayor for...
In my 14th year.
14 years. I was going to say 17. It's just it feels like 17. Mick is he's inspirational to carry the torch after MAPS started and created the next step of the MAPS brand. It's a household name. He also is a sports fan of some significant repute and also a sportscaster of major repute and one of the more non-political, non-confrontational politicians you ever want to meet. When you think about that, that's a good introduction.
You like that?
I like that. That's pretty good. I've never seen you mad. Do you get mad?
No, not really.
Terry, does he get mad? Yeah. Okay. Anybody in here? Does he get mad? No. All right. Just doesn't get mad. Tell me. I mean, it's a wonderful international story. Talk a little bit about the history of MAPS and the legacy.
Well, you're really talking about a generation of people that went through some fairly traumatic, inspirational, and emotional times. Yeah. Oklahoma City went through an economic collapse in the 80s and ultimately went through the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. And kind of coupled with the success of the MAPS investment, the sales tax that you were involved with 25 years ago, it created a kind of a magic formula. There's more emotional bond in this city. More people love this city and ultimately this NBA basketball team than I think in any other city in America. And I think it's the result of those life experiences. I mean, we've been through a lot, and so we're kind of proud of what we've been able to create. But to answer your question, no city in the country has gone as far as fast as we have.
I would validate that as anybody that studies history here. But this is a Midwestern city like no other, having worked here a bit. It's a classic case of under-promising and over-delivering.
Yeah.
And it started with Mayor Norick, who promised maybe $140 million of private investment as the referendum was close, but won in December '93. Now the number's over $4 billion, $5 billion.
It's like $5 to $6 billion.
It's not insignificant. Hotel rooms, 2,000, old and new.
Yeah. And we had 20 years ago we had one hotel downtown and it was struggling. We weren't sure it was going to stay open.
Is that, you're not referring to the haunted Skirvin? You're
no,
referring
the
to
Skirvin was boarded up at that time.
Right. By the way, we'll talk about the basketball side of it, but every visiting team that comes here, they're told, or they do, stay at the Skirvin. Some of them do. And they all say it's haunted. All the teams that lose say it's haunted. All the teams that win say it doesn't, right?
It is
obviously.
Haunted.
Yeah, okay. It is haunted. God bless Oklahoma City. They'll do anything for a win. And that's the guy that structures it. There are a lot of impossible promises. I remember when the first discussion happened, the feasibility studies were stacked to the roof, and the mayor, and I know that's your philosophy, is feasibility studies are great, but you need to implement based on what's practical and what's real.
Yeah.
And you put together a self-financing, debt-free structure that's created a brand of its own, which is marvelous, unique in American history.
Yeah. Well, building projects like this was completely out of the city's history. The city had no political capital for the voters to think they could actually complete all these projects, much less on time or anywhere close to the budget. So MAPS was a combination of some really smart people doing the right thing and being a little lucky along the way, and the results just exceeded whatever minor mistakes were made in the process.
Minor mistakes always happen, but there are many more successes than any minor mistakes, including, we can't see it now, hopefully we'll see it in a half hour, there's a river out there. And there wasn't a river, there was a river, but for a mayor, there was a ditch. And for a mayor, Ron Norick, and for you to then take the next step in the vision to say, we're going to have a series of interlocking canals like San Antonio that's going to bring new life to downtown. That's a vision that's almost fantasy.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, the river is one story, the canal is another. I can tell you this, when you helped pass MAPS in 1993, I was a television sportscaster. And, you know, in a television newsroom, there's a lot of transient professionals. They don't really have a whole lot of tie to the city. They're just working there at that stage of their broadcast career. And I can remember one of our reporters walking up to me because they knew I was a native and had some skin in the game. And she said, "Are you going to vote for this MAPS thing?" That's the way she described it. And I said, "I am going to vote for it, but I got to tell you, I don't get that canal. That's the craziest idea I've ever heard, but I'm going to get it." And now I live on the canal in downtown Oklahoma City. It's some of the best real estate around.
And not only live on the canal and the spawning of development around it, but talk about the boathouse and talk about the Olympic facilities that have been created.
Yeah, well, on the river, MAPS created 3 low-water dams that impounded water. And really for the citizens of Oklahoma City post-MAPS, that was enough. Yeah. Just having water in the river was a tremendous amount of pride. And then we had a visionary named Mike Knopp, who was a lawyer in town, but knew something about rowing. Didn't know much, but knew more than everybody else in town. And he looked at it and decided that straightaway that we had accidentally created could be a very fine rowing venue. The philanthropists got involved, fulfilled Mike's vision, and today it's the finest venue in the world for the sports of canoe, kayak, and rowing. And we held the Olympic trials last spring for kayak.
AAA baseball stadium used to have a rundown stadium over at the fairgrounds. The Oklahoma City Redhawks, the guy that owns the Florida Marlins owned it, but it was transient. They were buying and selling opportunities all the time. Now you have the Chickasaw Bricktown. Is that the name? I want to make sure everybody's happy. Right? Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark? Thank you. We're gonna hear the guy that runs the Dodgers in a couple of minutes, but as long as I get it right. And it's an amazing facility, Mickey Mantle Plaza, a tribute to baseball. And so first project to get done, and it also buttressed the faith in the community that you guys deliver on your promises.
Yeah, I still remember the day the ballpark opened because I was there. I was a sportscaster at the time, was able to get tickets, toughest ticket in town, and I got 5 because I had took my family.
Did you pay for that?
No. Okay. I was a sportscaster. Sportscasters don't pay for tickets.
Ladies and gentlemen, cut that out of here.
Yeah, mayors pay. But sportscasters don't pay.
That is funny. True.
And I just remember the amount of pride that I had in my city and how this ballpark was so cool. And it wasn't that I thought the old ballpark was that awful. It had been my office.
Yeah, you grew up there. Yeah.
I'd been to so many games as a fan and a professional. I guess I would say at low standards, but once I saw that ballpark and been in it, and you knew the other MAPS projects were coming, it was kind of a light bulb that, man, we may be onto something here. This city may not be what it's always been. But if you're talking about the pride that exists today in the city, it started the day the ballpark opened. So April of what would that mean, 98.
98, but then you continue to build on some successes and the next building and the next building. And along comes the bombing and the amazing tragedy. And you could probably make the argument, though you need to elaborate, that the city had been used to some successes, and part of the resiliency is owed, again, in part, to the fact that the city's been able to come together for other things before the bombing.
Right. I think we always knew we were a great city to live and raise a family.
Yeah.
We were pretty aware we weren't a great place to visit. And part of the pride of your city is showing it off to your family and friends from other parts of the country.
Absolutely.
Well, we didn't have a whole lot of that. Yeah. And so after the ballpark opened, suddenly we had a city that was worth bringing to. And that bonding process that took place after the bombing, I think, coupled with the MAPS projects, set Oklahoma City on a trajectory that we've never really relinquished. And that's why we've surpassed so many other of our peer cities, that you would have thought were peer cities in the 90s, and today we have a different list of peer cities.
They were, and they're not. And the other issue that everybody doesn't know the full story on is the Sonics/Hornets/Thunder. Most people, I guess, reinvent history and think, well, you built an arena and you had a team, and that's at the same time. But we all remember that the arena was done with some hopeful possibility of an NHL or an NBA team, but certainly no promise and certainly no expectation.
Yeah, well, my predecessor set the stage for that. For you and the others, including Mayor Norick, who sold the vision of an NBA NHL arena to a town that had no reason to think it would ever happen, to have built the stadium. And then Kirk Humphreys, the mayor in between Mayor Norick and myself, had to go back to the voters and get an extension on the MAPS tax to fulfill the original desires of building a first-class arena and not some downsized version. That gave me an opportunity to go to Commissioner Stern and start pitching the idea legitimately that we could be a place for an NBA franchise. It was still a long shot, but at least we had the infrastructure in place to make the suggestion that it was possible.
It's a dramatic story. Hurricane Katrina, George Shinn tries to find a relocation, does it in Oklahoma City for a couple of years, exit the scene. Clay Bennett, one of the owners of the Thunder, works on this deal. David Stern, debt-free arena, a Oklahoma passion, a great mayor who understands what it's all about. It's an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, and your astute point there is, I remember when I was showing pictures of our arena to David Stern, and he said, "How much debt do you have on that arena?" Thinking he had me. And I said, none. We paid cash. And I remember he looked at me like I had invented plutonium. And he said, "Really?" And I could tell instantly, wow, that was a really smart thing of us to do. I'd always thought it was a nice thing to say, but to impress him on some sort of sports management in preparation for a franchise, I knew we had hit a home run on that aspect of the arena.
And then the other dirty little secret, I guess, and just to clarify it for this international audience, Seattle's a marvelous city to have a pro sports franchise. They have 2 now. They ought to have 3. They ought to have 4. Totally dependent on the ability to get a new arena done for whatever reason. They now have got a couple of bids. It might happen. But Clay Bennett was the steward of the Supersonics, and whether people like it or not, the full national story is he did the best he possibly could to try to get a deal done there, was perfectly willing to either turn it over, stay there, exchange, whatever it takes to put franchise there and come back here, although that wasn't his mandate. Clearly, his mandate was to get something done in Seattle, but he had the right guy at the right time.
Well, it seemed to me, looking at from the outside, that the general population in Seattle was through subsidizing sports teams. They had done it for baseball. They had done it for football. When basketball took its turn, they said, no more. We've done enough of that. And as Commissioner Stern told me one day, against that wind, no ship can sail.
Wow, metaphorical too.
And yeah, I think the writing was on the wall, as much as the basketball fans of Seattle hated to hear it. If basketball would have come before one of the other two, basketball might have gotten the arena, and one of the other sports might be gone today. It was that's just the way that the chips fell.
Well, and now they understand how important it is, and they have 2 bids on the table, and they may get it done. Who knows? And what happens with the Thunder is they've created some incredible enlightened management, including one of the more enlightened individuals I've ever met, who's sitting here on his cell phone right now waiting for his opportunity to be interviewed. And he'll do it. But, Clay Bennett put together an amazing organization, and it took the town by storm.
Well, Clay Bennett's a brilliant businessman, has the complete confidence of the rest of the business community, and always does what he says he's going to do. And you put that, and here's another point, always puts the city ahead of himself and expects the other business leaders to do it too. That's a rare person, a rare combination. And the team wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Clay Bennett and the ownership group that he was able to put together.
Perfect storm of mayor, political folks, journalistic folks, all sitting in a room, rowing in the right direction, again, to be metaphorical. But then we have a interesting NBA, which allows players at the end of their contracts to go to other teams. Imagine that, called free agency. And one of the problems with the NBA is you don't have 11 players on a team at the time. You have 5, and especially if one of those 5 is so dominant. And so Give us your perspective about what this town experienced and what happened in this town after Kevin Durant left to go to Seattle, to San Francisco.
You got to remember that our assumption was that if one of the two, Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, was going to leave, it was probably going to be Russell because he was an LA guy, he was a UCLA guy. It just seemed like he might want to play in those types of cultures. Kevin always talked about how much he loved Oklahoma City, how much it kind of it reminded him of the exact place that he wanted to be. And so I don't think Kevin was misleading us. I think he really believed all that. And I think he went into that weekend in New England and changed his mind, or had his mind changed, and just decided to bolt on over a 48-hour period. And it stunned us. And perhaps we were naive. You know, we've never been through the professional sports world before. We've never lost, our star player before. But we were hurt more than anything else. I mean, it was like an emotional breakup, between two lovers. And we loved Kevin, and all of a sudden it felt like he didn't love us anymore. Yeah. And so you saw how that exerted itself during the season, the first time the team came back with him in uniform.
Yeah, and you changed your love. I've got your text and Norik's text on what happened that weekend. I'm going to save them, okay? I don't think you want to know what you said, if you remember. So he came back, but the whole idea of Oklahoma City and the region as a resilient community where you come back. You did it after the bombing, not to equate Kevin Durant with the bombing, please, but you did it after that. You did it after being jilted by United Airlines and others that gave rise to MAPS originally. Mm-hmm. Is there some of that spirit that's prevalent here on this issue?
Yeah, it is a very resilient community, and if you look at our history, that's 130 years old. This state has been through a lot. Been through the Dust Bowl. Yeah. We've always had our economy tied to the price of a commodity, whether it was cotton or wheat or oil and gas, and so our economy has always gone like this. And so it seems like it's either the best of times or the worst of times in Oklahoma. And we've always been resilient. We've always come back. And so I think some of that is kind of a binding agent for the community. We don't give up, and we know it'll get better. And we've had our backs against the wall several times, and we know we can stick together, and good times will be back.
After you leave as mayor, which is coming up soon, is there a rush to vacate this town like the old wagon train out of town, or will there be someone here who could possibly do anything near the job you've done?
Well, we have a very deep bench as far as leadership. So the mayor plays a role, but there's the business leadership. The city council is important. I'll put our city council with any city council in America as far as being in politics for the right reasons. Everybody puts the city first. That's the expectation of the business community. It's the expectation applied to the politicians. And so there's every reason to think that Oklahoma City's best days are ahead.
Final cool thing for you, and you have a lot of cool things, but the thing that I know is that as the chairman of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and this is your active term, to watch you at an event like we did in Frisco, Texas, brag on Oklahoma City, it's really fun because there's real substance to it. There's some mayors that talk just to talk, but this is your baby, and people, you're in a position where you can advocate, and a lot of what people ask you, the mayors, are about best practices. How can we, Frisco, Texas, El Paso, other cities, how can we possibly do what you do? And I'm sure it gives you a sense of pride.
Well, every city that comes to Oklahoma City, has the opportunity to steal an idea here or there. I mean, we've stolen ideas from a lot of other cities too. Nothing wrong with that. But every time somebody comes in to study our model and then they leave, I always think to myself that secret potion they can't take with them is the unity that exists in the city. You got so many people here pulling on the same rope. You don't have a people pointing fingers at each other and blaming each other. We're not overly partisan by nature. We don't care who gets the credit when good things happen, and we share the grief when times are bad. And you can't manufacture that. I mean, it's real here. It's not something we just say because we want it to be true. It's real, and that's what every other city can't really get their fingers on when they try to duplicate some of the success.
What's next for Mick Cornett?
Well, don't know. As we speak, we're looking at the potential of a statewide race, a governor's race. We'll see. But regardless of where I end up, this city's on a good trajectory.
Right, and plus you're not going anywhere, and this is your baby, and there are a bunch of people whose baby it is, and will continue to cultivate that. And by the way, the other thing is you're a mild-mannered, reasoned, amazing politician. Everybody loves you. 2 hours from now, he's going to be yelling and throwing stuff in that box, and I got to tell you, it's going to be nasty. So stay out of his way. Hopefully, the Thunder by 18 tonight. Make it easy.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Good with that?
Yeah, that'll cover.
It'll cover a lot of context. You heard it here. It'll cover. Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Appreciate that.
See you, Rick.
Thanks. Next victim, Brian. Would you? Oh, seriously? Okay. All right, Michael first, right? So we do Dodgers, and then this is an interesting brother act. We'll talk about that in a little while. So what we've established is that Michael Burns has more of an important job to get to than Brian does. I guess what we've established. It's only the beginning. Yeah. Hey, so this is informal, although you're going to tell 4 million people. What's the suite number so I can see you later?
31.
Suite 31. Ladies and gentlemen, Suite 31. Okay, sorry. I will see you. Thank you. Terry, thank you for bringing him here. I appreciate that. Mick, thank you very much. If I lived in the city, as you know, I'd vote for you 8 or 9 times. You know that. Okay. Thank you. Next victim. All right. So this is the fun part of it. So Michael Burns, general manager, CEO,
President, general manager,
president. This is as good as it gets. Los Angeles Dodgers. And by the way, we did not talk about how Mick Cornett is a lifetime Giants fan in a Dodgers town and continues to wear a Giants hat to his political and soon-to-be economic detriment. So there is a message there. Goodbye.
He's wearing blue today.
Good. God bless him.
Yeah.
Right. Because the Giants are not playing very well. So that's, as we know. Interesting concept. We're gonna hear Michael's brother in a few minutes. It's a brother act beyond any comprehension this side of the Ormarks. But it's a brother act that is compatible and it's wonderful. This guy runs the AAA affiliate here in Oklahoma City, and his brother, with her in a couple of minutes, is one of the top executives with the Thunder. So great Thanksgiving conversations, right?
Absolutely. We get a chance to talk a lot of sports in our family. There's 4 Burns boys, actually. So
right. And the other 2 Burns boys do what? We talked about last night.
Yeah.
Give them a little shout out.
One's involved in IT in Tucson with Gannett, and then the other one is an entrepreneur. And along with another family member with some cousins, runs a business in Brooklyn, New York.
The wild man. And your wife?
Yes, wife's involved in the team as well. She's our senior vice president. So we were a package deal 7 years ago when we came to Oklahoma City.
Hey, both of you, are there any significant management posts in Oklahoma City sports that are not manned by Burnses?
There's a couple.
Clay Bennett, right? Loft, Presti. I know, I got it. I understand. So tell us about the ballpark. You've been here 3 years?
I've been here 7 years.
7
This is my
years,
7th
sorry.
season. Yeah.
So the
They add
Dodgers,
up quick.
yeah, they add up quick. The Dodgers and how it's grown and what's happened in this town.
Yeah, this is our 3rd season as a Dodgers affiliate, and the connection with the Dodgers has just been fantastic. It's such an international brand, so when we aligned ourselves as their affiliate and then ultimately rebranded and made the connection between Oklahoma City and the Dodgers, we've seen such a great lift from that. And Dodgers fans come out of the woodwork. Occasionally you run into some Giants fans, but by and large, there's Dodgers fans everywhere. And so it's just been really great. We were 5 years into operating the business that was the Oklahoma City Redhawks at the time, and working through a turnaround and trying to get people engaged with the team again. And so had that really set in the right direction when there was a change in ownership and the Dodgers aligned themselves, and so those two things really worked well together.
This was a Rangers town, was an Astros town, not necessarily Dodgers town before you guys came in.
You're right. It was Rangers for 28 years as a AAA affiliate, and then the Astros were here for 4. And there's a generation of Rangers fans here, and there's a lot of connectivity to the St. Louis Cardinals because of proximity and KMOX. So we certainly see that as well. And Cubs jerseys come out of the woodwork as well when the Iowa team comes to town. But there's no doubt a passion for the Dodgers overall, and I think we've reignited a passion for just local baseball in general. That people want to come out, they want to spend their time with their family at the ballpark. They want to be able to be connected to what is now a 20-year gem in our community, and everything that you just spent time talking with Mayor about, and what that means to the quality of life and pride for people in Oklahoma City.
The business of minor league baseball here. There's room at the inn for both a Major League NBA franchise and a well-run minor league baseball franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, put aside that by and large, we don't overlap all that much. Playoff time, certainly. So we're able to really operate at different times of the year. But there are many other markets that have a AAA team and an NBA team, and so they can coexist. There's certainly the strength in the business community to support both. We have found our niche in terms of being a venue for businesses to entertain in the summer and be connected with the ballpark. So both can thrive. Even when you add in OU Sooner football, with all that collectively, there's room for everyone to have their piece of pie.
And it's not, I don't want to get spiritual here, but the whole idea of the MAPS 25 or so years and embracing and rising up and developing business and world-class Olympic facilities, we'll see them. We'll describe them.
They're beautiful.
We know they're beautiful. World-class Olympic facilities, obviously the Chesapeake Arena, your 20-year building. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's all tied in the same package makes it easier to evoke community spirit?
No doubt. Yeah, and when I first entered the community, it was clearly evident how well everyone works together. It didn't take too many conversations to make sure that was clear, that the business community was going to support, they were going to work well together, and we could coexist. One of the things that's been an outstanding outcome in this market, and I think it goes beyond just family relationship with Brian and I, is the sports community also works just really well together. There's a lot of interest in making sure that all tides can raise all ships, and so we work really well together, whether it's recruiting new events or whether it's making sure that each of our venues and our businesses are supported. So all in all, it's just been a fantastic community to be a part of.
What about the business of minor league baseball generally at the AAA level? Is it what it once was? A lot of players will go directly from AA to the majors now, and AAA invites at its core a different kind of player. How's it all evolved?
It is interesting, and there are certainly some major league franchises that have different philosophies on how they approach that. Ours is unique because of the AA affiliate being in Tulsa, so you're only 90 miles away. So we do see, we've had plenty of great prospects come through here. Corey Seager played the most of a season here. We have 3 of the Dodgers' top 4 prospects on the roster right now. So we're seeing great talent. It helps that the Dodgers are unique, that they spend money at the big league level, so they have a lot of talent there. So there's a ceiling for some of the talented guys that they have in their system. But when you have a guy like Cody Bellinger, who is going to be a fantastic Major League Baseball player, spending time in Oklahoma City, it's really cool to be able to see him. There are other Major League franchises that do just what you said. AA player kind of peaks out there, go to spring training the next year, and you make the big league club. And so there is that leap over AAA. But we've been blessed so far that we're seeing a lot of talent from the Dodgers.
How does someone who manages a minor league baseball team promote a legitimate superstar, knowing the better he is, the quicker he leaves?
Very carefully. You have to have some quickness in the marketing team to make sure that they can update your promotional materials.
Patches on the hats.
Exactly. So you have to be smart about that. And player movement is something that's so sensitive. It's that guy's career, and so being too overt with it can harm a relationship. And so one of the things that we spend time on is really the guys that have come through here. So whether that's a Corey Seager, Julio Urias, who spent some time at the big league club last year, being able to feature those guys a season later, I think still helps to tell the story to the people locally that there's that connectivity to who played here and the type of talent that could be on this year's roster. But there's unique instances. Last year, for example, when Puig was assigned from the Dodgers down here, we had 30 days or so with him on our roster, and we had to ask ourselves questions we had never asked ourselves before. How are we going to spend time marketing this individual?
By the way, was he a good citizen here for the 30 days?
He was a saint. He was outstanding to our staff. He signed autographs before and after games. It was clear the message was received on why he was sent down here. But he was a great teammate, the guys in the locker room said. But we were intentional. We even went downstairs, we talked to the field staff and said, we're going to spend a little bit of resource promoting that he's here. What's that going to do to the locker room for you? And we had great conversation with Bill Hasselman, the manager, to make sure that we were aligned and that we didn't get out ahead of him.
Well, the one thing that's very clear is you have a soul. and it's a very important way to manage in this facility and to manage in baseball. All right, all the rest of this stuff, what I just asked you, totally irrelevant. Now, here's the big stuff. Who's the better athlete in the family? You or your brother?
There's a couple years separation between us, so we don't have too many opportunities that we went head to head.
And
I can tell you, I can take shots at the one that's not here. I can certainly dominate with the youngest brother on the basketball court.
Okay, well
so
that's an easy answer to
I feel
a
really
different,
comfortable there.
Easy answer to a different question, right? I mean, that's we could all do that. Yeah, I don't have a brother, but I'm sure I could beat the hell out of him too. So all right. So tell me, on the basketball court, when you play him, who wins?
It's been a number of years since we went head to head. There's been a number of games, of course, I think, in recent years. And I feel confident that I won the majority of them.
All right, good. Well, we'll test that one in a minute.
Yeah.
So when he loses and you guys are, first of all, how often do you have dinner together? Do you talk every day?
It's nice that we can utilize each other's events to kind of get together.
Yeah.
So whether that's
cool. So
him and his family come to the baseball games, or
you go to a lot of Thunder games, and he goes to
we try
Dodgers?
to make it to it when we can, when we're not running an event ourselves.
So when you lose, does he give you one of those gratuitous, reassuring hugs and say, "Boy, get him next time"?
It's less hug and more pat on the back.
Pat on the back. Yeah. What about him when he loses? Do you do the same thing?
I just take it in stride, and I make sure to move on.
So you told
he's
me
the oldest, so you don't want to take too many shots.
And you told me a story, and we won't betray, but it's we'll talk about Durant. But when you're sitting there and it's like free agency and it's like last summer, it's so important that his business is wrapped up in whether one guy stays or leaves. That must have been a pretty traumatic time for the family too.
Well, it was something that it was certainly out there, and so it's July 4th holiday.
Yeah.
Families are getting together, and we've both got kids and getting the cousins together to play with one another, and so the question of when will that answer be provided was just kind of hanging out there. So there was some curiosity, and unfortunately, it turned out the way it did.
Didn't I tell you to turn the cell phone off and not talk to anybody at that time? You have to pick it up that day. That's part of the deal. So, future of the Dodgers in this town, where is this whole process with the Dodgers going to be 5 years from now?
Well, I hope, and I feel pretty confident with the team that we have in the front office put together right now that we're going to be selling out as many games as possibly can. And I think the organization is operating really well, and there's been a lot of strength that's been built over the last couple of years. So as we referenced, there's support in this community for this team. Baseball is such a generational sport, and it's been so fun to be involved in that. 15 years of my career to watch, grandfathers and granddaughters and fathers and sons and the teaching of the game. So that is always going to exist. There's always going to be the need for entertainment on a Friday and Saturday night for a family. So there's opportunities for us to really continue to grow and strengthen the brand.
That's baseball. Our crack executive producer we wouldn't be without, so thank you. Will you do me a favor? Just pan out there for a second. You don't have to get up, but just pan out for 1 second. So this is the day, ladies and gentlemen, that is similar to the weather on the day the earth will stand still and die. So, and hopefully, after our next interview, Rick Moore is going to take us on a tour of whatever we can see from the 49th floor. But my final question, you're playing tonight? Is that correct?
We are going to give it our best effort. We play... There's 142 games in 154 days. There's not too much flexibility in that schedule, so we're going to give it a shot.
I understand, Brian, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the Dodgers, this is free. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to hear this. This is free poncho night, so everybody who gets out there gets a free poncho. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding, believe me. You're going to kill me, right? I can tell you're going to kill me. He didn't say that.
There's worse things you could have said.
Yeah, so. I know, but I'm not going there, believe me. I want to have this conversation after we're done. Thank you, my friend. Really, really appreciate
Good to see
that.
you.
Yeah, really. Next, Burns.
Work.
That was awesome. Are you leaving? You going back to the game now?
Hang out for a couple.
All right. You're gonna hear how he answers.
Check the radar from here.
You're gonna hear how. Yeah. You don't even need to check the radar. I can tell you what's happening. Okay. You want to hear how he answers the family questions?
I am pretty curious about that. Yeah.
You want to get those over with first, or you want to talk about the Thunder?
You can go right into whatever you want.
All right. Well,
Your
hey,
show.
how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm doing great.
So you may remember Brian has done some segments with us many times. I count Clay Bennett as one of my really good friends, and Brian as another. And what they've done with this organization is absolutely amazing. Easier to come into a town where there's no other major league pro sports franchise, but and also a feeling that, wrong words, you stole, relocated someone else's team, so let's embrace it, this is ours. But it's not that easy to cultivate a town that's had no prior NBA or professional basketball experience and get the support at the price level you have to as well. So, talk about some of that.
Well, we prefer to use the word relocated.
Yeah, do it. Stole.
Right.
By the way, it's not stole.
Right.
I mean, stole is only in the eye of the beholder. We relocated. Okay?
But I think
I'm coming after him too, right? It's not just you, right? Sorry.
But I think you touch on something that I think we talk about quite a bit, and that is that Oklahoma City has been underrated as a sports market and have a sophisticated appetite for sports. I think it gets labeled a college football market too quickly because of the success of OU football and OSU football. But you think about, you just talked to Michael about the history of the Dodgers and the 89ers. I mean, they've been here for more than 50 years, providing great entertainment and great sports in Oklahoma City. Hockey teams have been successful here for a long time at the minor league level. I think people forget that the New Orleans Hornets were here for 2 years and provided maybe the best practice of all time. They were here for 2 years to prove the market, ticket sales, attendance, sponsorship, and so forth. And for the Thunder to then develop a business model on the heels of all of that, I think speaks volumes to the market's appetite and ability for success and sustainability. Right. And so I don't know if it was so much about the Thunder having to prove the market. I think the Thunder's opportunity was to take advantage of all the good work that had been done for so long to develop an appetite for something sustainable and permanent. I think the idea that the Thunder and the NBA was establishing roots in 2008 with an idea that this could work long term gave people a sense of real ownership, and I think that we still pay benefit from the dividends of that for ticket sales and sponsorship for many years to come.
And I remember Mayor Cornett's comment to David Stern about a debt-free arena. The other piece of this, and we talked about it with the Dodgers, as far as the spiritual packaging of all things MAPS and Oklahoma City related. The arena wasn't done for you, but the second MAPS vote was done for someone that was you. And although the Blazers and the old CHL hockey, I remember in the early days where I was doing stuff here, was really important, but there was a passion for a winter sport here, and Oklahoma City has directed it to the basketball piece. How important were those votes and the ratification that this facility was part of this whole MAPS process, and this team is an important adjunct of that?
Well, you speak to the second MAPS vote. It was actually the third vote because the second one was MAPS for Kids.
Right. Sorry, you historically.
But if you think about the history of that, though, MAPS 3 was on the docket.
Right, I know.
And it was pushed off a year to allow for the teams, the relocation to the Board of Governors of the NBA to evaluate the relocation bid. And in the interim, they advanced a big league city vote, which was another MAPS vote, but it was an interim, very short window, 18 months or so, specifically dedicated to upgrading the arena to provide the amenities and the opportunities for an NBA team, meeting the criteria that the Board of Governors had set out. So you have a citizen that's thinking about that vote, and it's directly tied to this opportunity. And so there's a real connection there. This is not just a hypothetical thing or a dream of things to be built. It was specific to this event, and I think that's drawn a lot of value in people looking at how this has come together.
And put that in context of other referenda around the country where you have to get a stadium or an arena done, and in many cases the strategy is to bundle other stuff around it so you emasculate or hide the fact that you're voting for an owner. This was directly 180 degrees otherwise, and the citizens spoke, and they spoke positively.
Well, the success of MAPS, as you've talked about already on this program, the confidence that it had provided the community that things were going to be done as they were developed, and that people could see the fruits of the work, and they were enjoying the economic and cultural renaissance and resurgence of the community. I think that provided a great roadmap for our ask, and the fact that there was confidence that it would be done the way it was described, that nobody's pulling any punches, and there's nothing to look behind the corner and find out what's the real answer here. The real answer was, if you want to have this team on the heels of the Hornets being here for 2 years, if you want to have an NBA franchise, this is our time. This is our moment. And the vote was obviously very overwhelming in our favor.
First, not Hornets. Hornets were great to see here. People always knew that, and it was kind of funny to see the New Orleans, Oklahoma City Hornets on the uniforms, but it was always some other team that was destined to go back. But this team, for real, was yours. The feeling of opening night was just unbelievable. It was compelling. It was this emotional outpouring that frankly, I've never seen. So, talk a little bit about that.
Well, you had a real celebration that it was ours. It's not unlike what the mayor referenced earlier about opening night at the ballpark 20 years ago. This was the Oklahoma City Thunder. There was no Slashes. There was no other teams there. This was our team. And I think, today we're about to enter our 10th season. Right, so we've already renewed our season tickets, and we've renewed a lot of sponsorships for next year. So we're well into the discussion, the narrative of what 10 years feels like as a franchise and as a business. And there are so many stories related back to that night. I was there. I was a part of this. I've been on this journey. I've seen Russell Westbrook play every minute of his career in Oklahoma City. And so there's a connection now. There's almost a passing of a baton to the next generation already now of Thunder fans. And there's many references to that night being a transformative night in Oklahoma City because it was real.
You look at big market teams. I probably shouldn't say mismanaged because you'll be defensive about that. My words, not yours. So you look at New York, you look at LA, and you look at some of the bigger markets that have much more revenue to deal with. How do you look at your challenge being a small market team? Opportunities to grow? Do you feel a bit frustrated sometimes?
Look, it's a small market. You can't hide from that. And we've learned to embrace that. We've learned to look at those as opportunities. We try to instill as much emotion and as much connectivity to the community and create a sense of unity to a variety of databases and customer segments to make something of real value behind going to the games and being a Thunder fan. Because that's really important to us. We can't appeal to just the sports consumer. We can't appeal to a thin slice as maybe some other teams are forced to do in markets where there's a lot of clutter. When you have an NFL team or an NHL team or other things to compete against, our competition is relatively thin. And so we've taken a much broader approach to what we do. And our entire marketing philosophy has always been built on team first and identity about the team as a cultural icon. Being very authentic in the community. We're not just checking the box on community service. We're trying to make authentic contributions to things that the city and the state, identify as real opportunities. And it's about making the brand something bigger than basketball, that you can believe in the Thunder and that you can see it as something of real value. And I do a lot of public speaking for the team, and I'm out in the community quite a bit. And I'm so struck by how often somebody will come up to me and say, they haven't been to a game, or they're not necessarily a Thunder fan. But they always qualify that and say, but I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate the work that you do. I'm glad that you're a part of what Oklahoma City is. And I've never heard that in any other market I've worked in. Yeah. And I equate that to the fact that, there's an analogy of, there's a dry cleaner in your neighborhood that you don't frequent. How often have you walked in there and thanked the owner for being in business? Well, we hear that all the time. Yeah. And what it is, it's a real reminder to us that we stand for something bigger than basketball. And that the way that we help to inspire the community, we've created value, we've been a part of this cultural and economic renaissance for now a decade, is something that we have a real responsibility to continue to build on.
How hard was it to lose Kevin Durant?
Well, in the moment, it was crushing, obviously. He was a tremendous player and a tremendous person. He did a lot for this community. He was the face of the organization for a long time, very involved in so many of the things that we were doing on and off the floor, and was a part of the first 8 years of our history. And so for him to leave was certainly a blow. And we went through I think all 5 stages of denial and anger and all of that.
What's the 5th? Are you there now?
We're there now. We're over it.
Playoff. Game 3.
Look, a lot of it had to do with the fact that Sam Presti and his team have immediately pivoted to reconstituting the team in a different way. Having Russell re-sign with the team relatively quickly, August 4th, making a commitment like he did, really put a charge in the organization and the fan base. And we've just never looked back. I think as an organization, we've always believed to be very forward-oriented, always thinking ahead, always looking, over the horizon for what's next. We never look back. And you can't do that. You have to continue to build and continue to be optimistic and positive. And sure, it changed the composition of the fan base. It changed, the connectivity. It was jarring for fans to have been wearing his jersey and being a fan for so long. But you move on. And we move on with great passion and great enthusiasm. And today, the business is arguably as healthy as it's ever been. Yeah. We're sitting here in April, many months removed from that decision, a full season now behind us. And our business metrics today, whether it's season ticket sales or attendance metrics or sponsorship revenue, television viewership, social media engagement, every metric is as good, if not better, than it was a year ago today. And so the market has certainly responded and embraced what we're doing, and I think that speaks volumes to sustainability.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be good and providing great value 25 years from now, not just, year to year.
Mayor Norick and then Mayor Cornett would say it's part of the good Midwestern Oklahoma City stock and the ability to be resilient and to take control of your own destiny and not be not lose control of an asset. The whole United Airlines, American Airlines leaving, causing maps to be done in the first place, and then the resilience after the bombing. Do you buy into some of that in this community?
Absolutely. And tonight will be, a clear example of that. In our building tonight, when the players take the floor, the building's gonna be full. Everyone's wearing their shirts. Everybody's thundered up. The building is rocking and rolling well before tip-off. And I don't know that you see that in every market. There's a passion for the team. There's a passion for the experience. There's a passion for the sense of community that this game provides that I think is really, it's unique to us. And I think we've learned to really embrace that. And there's loyalty to that. There's passion to that. There's a sense of community to that are so much bigger and broader than just attending a sporting event. And we build on that. That has everything to do with the brand and the value that we're creating.
The interesting thing, too, and I mentioned it to Mr. Bennett, that folks who work in other markets but are sports industry executives like you and Scott Loft and others, it's a conversion. You're here, and it's your family. It's hard to describe.
It's important to us. Yeah. And again, you talk about small market. We have to really take care of what's in front of us. We don't have the luxury of turning over a fan base or turning over a sponsorship year to year or every 3 to 5 years. We got to take care of what's in front of us. And so customer service is at the absolute core of what we do. We might be old school in some respects, but the values of treating people well, doing it in a respectful manner, being very professional about our approach, even just the principle of saying please and thank you to a customer when they're in the building tonight, that's a lost art for a lot of folks in our business. But for us, it's the heart and soul of the brand. And when people are at the game tonight, they know that they're appreciated by us. They know they're important to us. They know that the game experience is driven by their fandom and their loyalty. That's the brand, and it's so much bigger than basketball.
What an incredible segue, treating somebody with love and respect. Now let's talk about your brother. How's that? All right, the better athlete. Who's the better athlete?
There's 4 boys in our family.
Yeah,
okay?
we've said that already.
We've got a lot going on.
All right, playing horse. First of all, do you agree that he wins most of the horse games you two play?
No.
All right. Well, do we have it on paper anywhere? Is there a Facebook anywhere?
I'm the oldest of the 4 boys. I got the most experience.
Clearly.
So you have to remember, when we're playing horse or we're playing one-on-one in the backyard, I got 7 years on them.
Yeah.
Right? So I got the old man tactics.
And when will he let you get away with the fouls and not calling him?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Now, if we went one-on-one today, he's got 7 years of youth behind him. So.
Well, he's a little taller, right? A little taller?
He's a little taller.
Yeah.
Yes.
A little more gangly,
I can't stand on my tippy toes anymore.
A little more gangly.
Yeah.
So administratively, it's not sharing trade secrets, but do you guys get together and talk shop?
I don't know that we do that as frequently as people might expect us to do.
Yeah.
But look, we're brothers. We speak all the time. Our families are connected, obviously. We live a few miles away from each other. We serve on a lot of the same boards. We cross paths at a lot of social and civic functions in Oklahoma City. We have a tremendous amount of respect for what each other does and the value that we both bring to the community economically and culturally. Sure, we share a lot of best practices, and we root for each other. We share a lot of staff. A lot of our game day and part-time staff that work at the venues are the same. I'll run into people tonight that will ask me how he's doing and how the baseball team's doing. And how
do they care?
How Michael and Jenna, they know his wife as well.
Well, Jenna, that's a big deal too. But were they going to talk about, would you? By the way, if you were running the Dodgers, would you play in this?
In this cloud structure out there right now? He says he can get the game in.
Tarps off the field. Tarps off the field, ladies and gentlemen. And the 3 people that are there are going to be watching it very carefully.
There's a tremendous amount of respect that we have for each other, and there's others in the community that work for, whether it's the Boathouse or the FC Energy or others. We're all in this together. Yeah. This has to work because we all work and we're all successful, and it goes beyond just being brothers, obviously. We have to root for each other, and we know that we can work together and we can bring resources to each other, and that's what makes Oklahoma City a great community.
Well, listen, it's an incredible international story that, from my perspective, transcends politics, transcends economics, transcends sports, and you've been a very important part of it.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right, so now we go from two brothers to someone who I feel like is a brother of mine. Rick Moore, step in here for a minute. And I'll see you a little later. I know this is Thunder Up.
Okay.
I'm going to attend the little event there, and so I'll be at the Founders place in a while. All right, I will. All right, thank you guys. Both of you were just as, we're not ranking either of you, but you both did a really good job. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks. My brother, Rick Moore.
Good to see you, Rick.
So let me explain. Rick Moore is you are the CEO of the Association of General Contractors in Oklahoma City. Is that the right? Is that the
I'm
correct?
executive director, the Oklahoma Municipal Contractors
All right, but that's not relevant to me. What's relevant to me is that 25 years ago he was the executive assistant, the chief of staff of Mayor Ron Norick, who is everybody's father on this plan. I texted him, by the way. I'm not sure he knows how to use Facebook, so he, if you're watching, hi. If not, I'm not sure he's doing it. But he was clearly everybody's visionary on this. And so we're looking back at 25 years to the day when we started some of these first conversations with Ron. What's your overall emotion?
It's remarkable to think about where we were to where we are. Because at that time, for instance, you talked about the river, the beautiful Olympic facilities that we have here. Back then, if you remember, the joke was we had the only river in America you had to mow twice a year.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's because there was nothing there. They'd done a really great job of damming it up years ago because of flooding, and it worked. Yeah. And so we transformed this city in many ways. So emotionally, it gives me such a deal of pride that I can't tell you. The fact that my kids and my grandkids stay here, and it's because they've got things like this. They've got a baseball stadium where we can go watch a quality product. Having the Dodgers here is a wonderful, wonderful thing for this city. Having the Thunder in the Chesapeake Arena, again, a project of maps. The river. We've got a river sports rapids that I think rivals anything in the world that is down on the river. The river itself with the row of boathouses. I was just in fact, last week, I was in the boathouse for my daughter's competition from University of Central Oklahoma on graphic design. So those boathouses down there do so many things that go in the community, far beyond just that. The Civic Center, we have wonderful concerts, Broadway shows. You go on and on. The Ron Norick Library downtown has made such a difference in this city. We are a different city than we were 25 years ago. I think emotionally, what a great deal of pride to look around and realize that what Ron Norick had the vision to start 25 years ago has got us to where we are today.
Yeah, and you remember some of those initial polls that were done that created the core of the campaign, and there were three things that I remember clearly. One is, to make sure you win, and that's that whole mess with Texas line. That was really kind of fun, to mess with Texas. I remember Barry Switzer standing up and saying mess with Texas. He wasn't coaching very well at the time, but everybody listened to him. But the second and third theme are unique, and they resonate. The second one was control your own destiny. And tell a little bit of that story, because Mick wasn't here and Ron is not here, about what brought everybody to the table in the first place about losing the deals when you thought you had American, you thought you had United, and you bid on things and lost.
We had 2 or 3 large economic development projects we had been working on, and in every one of them we were a finalist. And in most of them you had 50 or more cities competing to begin with, and we'd end up in the final 3 to 5 every time, but we could never win. And it was very frustrating to us. And so when we got to the United Airlines facility, we thought we had what it took to win. We, in fact, did a 1-cent countywide sales tax to build the facility. It was passed overwhelmingly by the people, and we just thought we had it. And when they announced it went to Indianapolis, I remember that day it was like somebody hit us in the stomach and knocked all the air out of us. It was just an incredible feeling of defeat. But Ron Norick was the kind of guy that didn't just be defeated and walk on, or didn't say, hey, we made a final, so we're great. Right. Ron Norick said, we got to do something about this. And so we started looking at what the cities had, what they were doing that had beaten us in all these competitions. And Ron saw that the things that were happening were things like infrastructure downtown, renovating their facilities that they owned. And once Ron saw that, he said, let's do that. We've got to do that. We've been doing things for other people. We need to do something for us. Yeah. The people have been willing to vote this tax to build a building for United Airlines. Let's give them some projects they can build that's for us and for our kids and our grandkids. And that was, I think, a very important part of this whole deal. Ron was able to convince these people, and they believed him, you know, that this is for us. Let's do this. And boy, that just kicked it all off.
The second piece of the theme that I found incredibly unique, we tested for it, and it was the summer before the December election. It was the twin theme of a generational obligation to retool the infrastructure for your next set of kids and grandkids, and that you want your kids and grandkids to stay home and come back. And right now, there's nothing for them to do here. Those twin arguments may have carried the day.
I think so, and I think one of the things that really helped Ron hit to that point was his dad had been the mayor, and in a generation before him had built a lot of the facilities which now were aged. And so Ron was able to figure out and say, look, they did that for us. What are we going to do for our kids and grandkids? So you're exactly right. I think he was selling these, even if people might say, well, I'll never go to a baseball game, or I'll never go to a Broadway show, or I'm not going to go to the river or the canal or whatever it might be. But your kids might. Or what if, you know, your kids grow up and they have their kids and your grandkids, they might do that. And I think you're right. I think that was what sold the day. And
the concept of bundling is kind of interesting. It's now kind of urban development 101, but I remember in meetings at U engineers sitting in a room with the guys, I forgot their, it doesn't matter what the name, but the guys from ballet, the guys from baseball, who never talked to each other. Right. And it was like, if you want yours, you're going to have to let him get his, and vice versa, which was an interesting dynamic.
We, as you said, the polls a while ago, when we did those initial polls, there was not a single one of these projects that had 50% of the vote, right, as you remember. And so there was not enough to pass any single project. That's when we looked at everybody and said, guys, we're going to have to put this as all or nothing. And if you want it, as you said, if you and the ballet want a new civic center or a renovated civic center, then you're going to have to vote for getting a new ballpark. You're going to have to vote for a canal, you're going to vote for a river, et cetera, et cetera. And I do believe in the end the people figured that out and said, you know what, let's do it.
The other interesting story about sports in Oklahoma City is that years ago, and basically right after the bombing and when the arena was in the package, there was a meeting with Ron Norick, and we kind of helped engineer it, and then Commissioner Gary Bettman, now Commissioner Gary Bettman, and hockey was on the agenda. And this was the Colorado Avalanche that was the Quebec Nordiques and decided to fly over Oklahoma City on the way to Colorado. And the presentation, I can tell you now, after talking to Gary Bettman, was totally unexpected. He didn't really expect that this asset would be in his lap. And, of course, they passed. But the process of getting a presentation to a sports governing body, of course, helped Oklahoma City land the NBA ultimately.
You know, it's interesting, as I look back, you were commenting earlier about other sports we've had for years. The Oklahoma City Blazers hockey team, I can remember the days at the old Fairgrounds Arena. There'd be 10,000 people at every game.
All cheering for fights.
Yeah,
blood.
Exactly.
Right.
Boom, boom, Corona.
Yeah, right.
But they would go out there literally, and we let all North American, minor league hockey in attendance every year. And so we had a great heritage with that. And so I believe when we started this process, the idea was, let's get a National Hockey League team. If you remember, we had what would be comparable to D-League now. We had the Oklahoma City Cavalry. Yeah. And I think that planted a seed that we didn't know was there.
D-League, the best developmental of the basketball league.
Exactly.
So, right.
And so all of a sudden we were watching a professional basketball team play in Oklahoma City. And that was the precursor to, as you spoke about with the mayor and others, when New Orleans came, when they had the hurricane and played those 2 years, man, it kindled a fire that I did not know was there. I thought hockey was our ticket. There was no question the NBA. And you're right, by having the meetings with Bettman and the others we met with talking, that prepared us for the meetings with Stern and to move forward.
Let's talk about the MAPS brand generally, because this is another thing that's incredibly unique internationally. MAPS is a short abbreviation for Metropolitan Area Project Strategies. There's no rhyme or reason for it. I got to tell you, the mayor made it up. It's a nice comment. It's a nice addition, but it doesn't mean anything. Yet in Oklahoma City, it's meant consistency. It's meant excellence. It's a brand in and of itself, and it's a brand that symbolizes people taxing themselves, which is an incredible departure from what most cities end up doing.
I know that most every time that people talk about the history of MAPS, one of the things you always talk about is we've been very blessed to have 3 mayors in succession who have all stepped out, put their political career on the line, and led the battle for MAPS for kids, the Maps 3, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing that's not talked about often enough in my estimation is it was the citizens of Oklahoma City who each time this was brought up voted for them. And they didn't just vote for a team coming or something like that. They voted to tax themselves a penny to do these things. And I think that is remarkable. And this is such a conservative state. We talk about Oklahoma being such a red state. It's all 77 counties. The Republican presidential candidate wins every year. Yeah. And yet, this was a city who looked at itself and said, you're right. You explain to me what we want. You explain how we build it, what it'll cost, and we did it.
Rick Moore, what's the future look like? Project ahead 5 years from now. What's this place look like?
It's incredible to think about the growth, but Maps 3 is a good way to talk about what it'll be like in 5 years. Just south of this building and south of the Chesapeake Arena, which we can't see,
it's there. It's over.
Part of Maps 3 is developing what would be akin to a Central Park in New York City. Yeah. It's starting right now, and in 5 years that will be there. We're having a new convention center that's going to be built just south of the Chesapeake Arena. Omni has signed to do a convention hotel along with it. So that's going to be on the south side of the arena. I think we continue growing on what we've done, and we continue moving forward. I would have never believed we'd had housing downtown like we do now. I saw today in the paper an announcement of a new housing condominium project on Broadway downtown. They're going to have, I think it said 11 units, and they will range in price from $600,000 to $1.5 million. I promise you 25 years ago I would have never believed that. Yeah. And there it is coming in. So I think 5 years from now, we will be moving down the road. Maps 4 will be, we're getting a light rail. Part of Maps 3, they're laying the tracks right now down here in Bricktown and around the city. We're going to have a rail system pretty soon. I think in 5 years, this city will transform again. And with Maps 4, you're going to see where it goes from that point. A new mayor will be elected since Mayor Cornett's decided not to run for re-election. So there will be a new mayor coming in here, and he will have, or she will have, their own ideas about where to go forward. And so I believe in 5 years, we will be a city continuing to be on the move.
Let's step up here and see what we can't see. But I want to promise, since you're an active historian, you're doing a magazine called Town Talk, anything with you and your brother kind of written, do me a favor. Let's send for the audience kind of a little bit of a history of maps and all. So, and we'll post it in the next week, so they can kind of take a look at what we would have seen.
Sure.
But let's go over here, and you're almost. How's your arm? You okay, Shaky? Everything okay?
So far.
And by the way, Randy Dame is a wonderful.
By the way, Randy Dame is our executive producer today. He stepped up at the last minute, and I want to tell you that look at his hands. He's still shaking, but he's all right. He's doing wonderfully. So step up here for a minute, and obviously, you can't see anything. It is interesting. Over to the right that you can't see is the Bricktown Ballpark, the Chickasaw Ballpark, and then Chesapeake Arena, which is 3 blocks. The 9/11 Memorial is a little bit to the left, which you can't see, and then the Myriad Gardens, the Convention Center, and the river is on the other side. But here's what I would tell you after. And by the way, Rick, thank you very much for that wonderful guided tour of Oklahoma City.
I spare no expense.
That's good. Well, we're going to have a map, but rather than that, Rick has committed to put something on the air for us. Actually, step over here for a second, just so we can see. Yeah, how about that? That's interesting. So you can't see much, but look how high we are. That's downtown Oklahoma City. That used to be. Is that the Petroleum Club?
Yes.
It used to be the tallest building. This building beats that by what, 25 stories?
That is it was a 36-story building, and this is 50. But the stories were different sizes when it was built, so this is a lot taller, probably twice as tall almost.
Yeah. Okay. And now it's coming back. So you have an idea. We didn't make this up out of whole cloth, but we'll send the Chesapeake Arena. We'll send kind of an aerial view of what's happening.
One thing I want to add about this building we're in, the Devon Tower was built. It's a $750 million, 50-story building. It wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for maps.
Yeah.
If you ask Larry Nichols, the CEO of Devon at that time, he will tell you, had it not been for maps, he would not have built this building here.
Well, and the irony is, if you've ever been to Oklahoma City, and you can see the dynamics of what the energy industry does, positive and negative, but also what is the next tallest? Is it the Petroleum Club? What's the next tallest building here?
Probably so, and it's now called Chase Tower, I believe.
And Chase Tower's 25 stories?
35.
35. So you build a building that's 15 stories higher than anything that's ever been built in the city, which tells you more than anything about the commercial development of MAPS. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me just conclude, and thank you, Rick. I really do appreciate
Thank
it,
you,
as
Rick.
always. This
I
is
always appreciate
as
you.
typical. It's amazing. Hang here for a couple of minutes. Let me just tell you that as far as I'm concerned, this is a unique international project. I'm emotionally connected to it. The 25th anniversary, the first meeting, it's important to me as well today. But also the Thunder begins their home part of their playoff series, and whether they win or lose against the Rockets, this city wins. This city wins because it has infrastructure, it has a AAA baseball team, it has enlightened political leadership, it's got business and civic support like Rick Moore, it's got people who are attracted from all over the world to see it, and it's got unlimited history, not only on the river, but the new convention center that Rick talked about, and a truly interesting international story. And when you say that public money shouldn't be used to develop sports facilities, enlightened public investment for infrastructure certainly carries the day, and it does in Oklahoma City. We apologize for the tour. We certainly had a good feeling about it. Rick's going to give us some information. I'm the sports professor, Rick Horrow. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.